Thanks so much for joining us. Tuesday's edition of Alaska Weather, 17th day of August, 2021. I'm Dave Percy, a meteorologist with the National Weather Service, and I'll be hosting today's show once again. Let's see, up first we've got fire danger, the no fire danger map here, and low fire danger everywhere. None even getting close to the high category that I could see on the reference chart today, so looking really good in that respect with all the rain across the state. Cool temperatures, struggling to get into the mid 60s or any 60s now showing up. It's getting hard to do, but there were a few today. Anyway, no watches, warnings, or advisories, no public watches, warnings, or advisories out anywhere around the state for the next probably 24 hours or beyond, as conditions, really the storminess coming in, next system coming into the west, not all that strong, one pushing across the North Gulf Coast Panhandle currently, and tonight not strong enough for any watches or warnings or advisories with either system. And for the satellite image, you can see the clouds, an upper level trough, actually upper low centered over the Arctic there, with clouds and surges of light moisture along the Arctic coast, keeping it kind of windy, winds gusting 20 to 30 miles an hour, some areas having gusts 35 miles an hour, north sloping along the Arctic coast throughout the day today from the west, basically, or west-southwest, and keeping temperatures in the 30s up there throughout the afternoon. And south of the Brooks Range, though, looked like some clearing trying to take place along the mid-Yukon River Valley, and also behind the trough over still another burst of clouds coming across the Kuskokwim Delta and the Kuskokwim Valley, but starting to clear out over the Yukon Delta today, a little bit anyway, and in toward Bristol Bay. Higher pressure starting to develop ahead of the next system that's dropping in, coming out of the Russian Far East there, that band of clouds, and that's going to try to put at least a weak ridge of high pressure ahead of it, and that's going to follow the upper level trough that's be slowly moving eastward across the interior tonight, and then gradually exiting the eastern interior tomorrow afternoon. Otherwise, rain on the increase over the Panhandle. Heaviest amount in the last 12 hours, Yakutat about 9/10 of an inch, and then they decrease as you go down the coastline. Let's see, Gustavus at about 3/10 of an inch of precipitation, and then Cake 3/100 of an inch, and that's about as far south as the precipitation's reached at mid-afternoon. Cake and over toward Sitka, where they had about 1/1500 of an inch, 0.06 the amount at Juneau so far, and that'll increase. And southern areas will get in on the rain tonight there as clouds continue to feed in from the west-southwest. Still a wet weather pattern there. And areas of rain, kind of windy over the around the Fairbanks area, seeing winds gust 25 miles an hour with rain this afternoon, light rain, picked up about 1/4 of an inch during the day today at Fairbanks, and areas of rain there from actually the eastern Brooks Range all the way down to the Copper River Basin areas, and lighter amounts out west over the southwest interior to the Alaska Peninsula, talking less than 1/10 of an inch to a few hundredths of an inch. And winds not really all that much of a factor. West winds gust 30 miles an hour down to Kotzebue. Again, all under the influence of that polar vortex there, or polar low sitting up off the Arctic coast there. And let's see, Cape Decision with that front coming into the Panhandle, gust 25 miles per hour. So not really a big wind producer or rain producer yet, kind of moderate amounts of rain though with the system. More of a rain than wind producer, the system coming into the Panhandle and North Gulf Coast. And on the chart today, there's the front with the heaviest rain again occurring, about 1/2 inch falling Cordova, and then lighter amounts back to the west. Showers ending over Cook Inlet, and the starting to taper off over the valley, Kenai Peninsula, as the moisture moves off. Still a chance of showers tonight with the trough back to the west there. Into the northeast interior, starting to clear out farther to the west. You can see some pretty good clearing, Togiak Bay over to Cape Newenham and along the Kuskokwim coast up to just north of St. Lawrence or Nunivak Island. Although there is some clearing around into the east of St. Lawrence Island as well. High pressure settled right in over the area there. Next system over the northwest Bering Sea for tonight, you'll see, doesn't really make much of a move to the east, although the rain and the associated warm front does start to push into the northern Bering Sea. Otherwise, high pressure south of the Aleutians, west-northwest flow carrying a couple of weak troughs eastward across the western central Aleutians, mostly cloudy, IFR flying conditions, fog, drizzle, at times Atka, Adak, back to maybe Kiska, and then improving for Shimi and Attu. Chance of a couple of showers for the Pribilof Islands, cloudy skies, maybe some fog tonight. Otherwise, light winds over all of the Bering Sea, kind of even out west there. Probably looking at 20 knots, but light variable winds, Bristol Bay, Alaska Peninsula, and Kodiak Island. But the heavier rain now pushing into the northern panhandle with rain spreading southward to Dixon Entrance with the frontal boundary and beginning to lighten up but persisting. Copper River Basin looks wet tonight and starting to become a little more showery for the areas north of the Alaska Range over the upper Tanana Valley 40-mile country. And Arctic coast, again, the upper low there swinging surges of moisture first southeast and then turning easterly as they approach the Arctic coast north slope latitudes. And winds will be coming down a little bit there. Won't see the 20 to 30 plus mile per hour gusts you saw today starting to come down, gradually come down slowly, but they won't end completely. And you can see less shower activity over the upper Yukon Valley and eastern Brooks Range, dry and clearing out over the western interior, low clouds and fog, eastern Bering Sea, Bering Strait, St. Lawrence Island, probably to the Fox Islands. And then the outlook for tomorrow, that front really stalling out, actually maybe another development coming northeast along the frontal boundary there and put another round of rain in, but it looks wet throughout the day tomorrow, periods of rain there for the entire panhandle. Starting to scatter out as showers for the eastern North Gulf Coast in the afternoon, but upper level trough slowly moving eastward, and pretty good chance of showers early on. Susitna, Manuska Valley, maybe northern Cook Inlet, definitely Copper River Basin and upper Tanana Valley, but that all diminishes by afternoon. Still lingering over the mountainous terrain of the Talkeetnas, maybe the Chugach, definitely for the eastern Copper River Basin, Wrangell Mountains, wet through the afternoon, lower flying conditions. High pressure, sunshine, central interior, right down to Iliamna Lake, maybe Cook Inlet, Kodiak Island looking good. Alaska Peninsula, Bristol Bay, partly sunny, maybe mostly sunny. Otherwise, areas low clouds and fog in the coastal and offshore areas there. Next system pushing rain into the Yukon Delta, St. Lawrence Island, and southern or southwest Seward Peninsula. Just a chance possibly for Nome, some light rain showing up. No change for the Arctic coast, except lighter winds, and that might be the end of the troughs around that Arctic low as it pulls off to the east. Higher pressure starting to come in. So another day of maybe some light precip, and that's about it. And moving on to the Thursday outlook, and that's exactly what happens. Gone is the precipitation for the Arctic coast. Look for some partly sunny skies up there, North Slope as well. Rain with that low pressure area that moves in across northern Norton Sound to somewhere around Nome, actually, give or take, east, west, north, or south. But anyway, an area of rain from the Noatak Valley, northwest coast, Kotzebue Sound, Selawik area, eastward to the Koyukuk Valley, southward into the central interior, pushing to the Alaska Range late in the day. So periods of rain, Kuskokwim Valley, heaviest on the western slopes of the Kuskokwim Mountains, and getting a little breezy, maybe gusts 30, 35 miles an hour along the coast of the Yukon Delta, back to St. Lawrence Island, but light winds over the southern Bering Sea with dry conditions, possible sunshine, otherwise low clouds and fog, showers, cool, panhandle, and still scattered showers, partly to mostly cloudy southeastern Alaska. And for the lows tonight, 50s for the panhandle, mid-30s, McGrath, Nikolai, down to 34, almost to the frost point there in the northern Kuskokwim Valley, otherwise mid to upper 40s. And for the highs tomorrow, 60 to 65, 6, maybe 7 around Iliamna, and upper 50s, lower 60s for the panhandle. And the lows following morning, milder there for the Kuskokwim Valley in the 40s again, 45 to 50 Bristol Bay, south central Alaska, upper 30s Copper River Basin, lower to mid 50s for the panhandle. Highs on Thursday, mid 60s southern southeast coast, otherwise upper 50s to lower 60s, 60 to 65 Copper River Basin, south central Alaska, mid to upper 50s Bristol Bay, Kuskokwim Valley, mid 50s, lower 60s Kodiak Island, Alaska Peninsula. Lows tomorrow morning into the mid-20s, Brooks Range, maybe the eastern North Slope, otherwise lower to mid-30s for the Arctic coast, and upper 30s, Seward Peninsula, near 40 St. Lawrence Island, mid-30s there for the Kobuk Valley, and near freezing for Tanana and Bettles, and upper 30s for the Fairbanks area. And then highs tomorrow, 50s, and 40s for the North Slope and the Arctic coast, and near 50 for the Seward Peninsula, mid-40s for St. Lawrence Island. Lows the following morning again, upper 20s to mid 30s, followed by highs in the 40s to upper 50s in the Tanana Valley.
And now, aviation weather around Alaska.
All right, moving on to flying weather. IFR, central western Arctic coast, western north slope there, and along the northern slopes of the eastern Brooks Range. And then south of the mountains, VFR across the Yukon River, all the way down to the Delta, and off the coast, Nunivak Island, VFR, Bristol Bay, VFR, northern Kodiak Island, Fognak Island, VFR, right up into Sitna Valley, Kenai Peninsula, Prince William Sound. Early marginal VFR along the Alaska Range, and even more widespread over the Copper River Basin, eastern Alaska Range into the 40-mile country, upper Tanana Valley, IFR, eastern Copper River Basin, Wrangell Mountains, right on down across Yakutat and the Panhandle, and IFR from Adak westward to Shimianatu, but just west of the Pribilofs for the afternoon. That area moves into the Pribilof Islands and moves eastward right to western Nunivak Island with marginal VFR now up to the Yukon Delta coast and to the Bering Strait. IFR from about Adak or so westward, Shimianatu, marginal VFR, Fox Islands, Alaska Peninsula. VFR, much of interior Alaska, but upper level trough, slowly improving conditions, but with still an upper trough over the eastern interior there. That's slowly moving through. We got marginal VFR, eastern Copper River Basin, Wrangell Mountains, IFR, Yakutat, the entire Panhandle, IFR, central Arctic coast, marginal VFR in the North Slope. And for the morning on Thursday, that area of IFR pushes inland across the southwest coast into the southwest interior, almost to the Kuskokwim Mountains. Well, marginal VFR makes it the Kuskokwim Mountains, but to east of there, VFR until we get the marginal VFR still kind of lingering there over the central Copper River Basin, eastern North Gulf Coast. IFR, southern Panhandle, marginal VFR to IFR in the north. Good VFR, interior Alaska, north of the Brooks Range, marginal, central Arctic coast IFR, and areas of IFR over the Aleutians and most of the southern Bering Sea. And for the afternoon, marginal VFR for the Aleutians, Pribilofs, southwest interior, right up to the mid-Yukon River Valley area to about Tanana, actually eastward there, Indian Mountain, and Seward Peninsula marginal, but mid and upper Tanana Valley, all of the eastern interior, VFR Cook Inlet, Susitna, Matanuska Valley, but the Talkeetnas, Alaska Range, seeing some marginal VFR, as is Prince William Sound, North Gulf Coast, and mostly marginal for the Panhandle, Kodiak Island, VFR, except down towards Sitkinak and the Trinity Islands. And passes Anatuvik, marginal VFR to start, becomes VFR for probably late morning through the afternoon. Same trend for Adigan, marginal VFR probably before noon, becoming VFR through the afternoon into the evening. Lake Clark and Merrill, VFR the entire day. Rainy, VFR the entire day. Starting out marginal for windy, then becoming VFR at some point in the afternoon. And Isabel, marginal VFR, becomes VFR again at some point in the day. And for Mentasta, improving, but not as much, starting out IFR and then becoming marginal VFR in the afternoon. Tanita, marginal VFR to VFR before probably midday, and Portage VFR the entire day. And for Chilkoot and White, IFR, freezing levels 2,000 feet down to the Seward Peninsula there and just south of the Brooks Range, and at the surface there with any elevation at all you're below freezing anywhere in the Brooks Range. Otherwise 4,000 to 8,000 feet across southern Alaska, 8,000 to 12,000 feet across the Panhandle, about 12,000 for the Aleutians. And the icing, only one area considerable moderate rime icing. Best chance of that would be just south of St. Lawrence Island, so staying off the coast everywhere throughout the day. Otherwise, some isolated moderate possible, eastern Beaufort Sea coast north slope, and over the Panhandle, mixed icing of mostly the light variety, very isolated moderate mixed icing for the southeast coast there up into the eastern Copper River Basin, Wrangell Mountain areas. And then kind of an increasing icing threat for the Yukon Delta coast, western southwest Seward Peninsula. Jet stream, basically westerly flow across the state, upper level low there, northwest Bering Sea, west of St. Lawrence Island, 70, 75 knot winds, up to 80 in the interior, turn northwest, 50 to 65. Stronger jet across the Panhandle, around 100 to 110 knots. Light for the Aleutians, 9,000 feet, that low a little farther at this elevation, just west of St. Lawrence Islands, we got 35 knot winds into the southwest interior, 35 to 40 knots out of the northwest eastern north slope, up to 45 to 55 knots southern panhandle, 3,000 feet, looking like that. Turbulence, moderate chop showing up along the Yukon Delta coast, St. Lawrence Island, light to isolated moderate chop for the central east.
Good evening, and thanks for joining us for another edition of Alaska Weather Facts. I'm meteorologist Dave Snyder, joined again by Eric Stevens of GINA, the Geographic Information Network of Alaska from the University of Alaska Fairbanks. And Eric, thanks so much for joining us again tonight.
Happy to be here, Dave.
Thanks, Eric. And we've been talking about the complex gathering of information from satellites, looking down on the surface of the planet, and some of those orbits around the planet work for Alaska, and some of them don't. There's a lot of challenges with those. How can we get better imagery for the poles and specifically for Alaska?
Right. Well, today we're going to talk about a very interesting kind of satellite orbit that has potential to be real helpful for the high latitudes.
Okay.
Especially us here in Alaska. Canadians, Russians, Norwegians will all be interested in this. The satellites are not in orbit yet. Now the future is uncertain, but it's possible, and if this happens, it will be wonderful for Alaska. Okay. It's called the highly elliptical orbit.
Oh, that sounds
it's interesting. Yeah. And I think first, to help our discussion, we should get back to some of Kepler's laws and how do satellites work.
Sure.
Kepler's first law, an orbit of a planet around a sun or a weather satellite around the Earth is not necessarily a circle, it's an ellipse.
Okay.
And the highly elliptical orbit takes advantage of this aspect. We're going to put the Earth in one of the ellipse and then stretch one of the foci of the ellipse and then stretch that ellipse out real far to make it highly elliptical.
And the foci is that bend part of the end of the ellipse. If you're going to stretch out a rubber band, that would be the center, kind of the stretchy part.
Yes.
Ends. Okay.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
And then Kepler's second law says that the closer something is to the thing that it's orbiting, the faster it goes.
Okay.
We see this in the solar system, that Mercury flies around the sun real fast. Jupiter, much slower. Jupiter's further away, it's slower. Mercury's closer in, it's faster. This happens with weather satellites too. Even satellites like the International Space Station, it's pretty close to the Earth. It goes around the Earth in only 90 minutes. That thing is moving. It's only 250 miles away. So how can we take advantage of these two aspects of Kepler's laws of motion to get better weather surveillance of Alaska? And this highly elliptical orbit is going to be the approach. So we have with us today our friendly planet Earth and our simulated satellite, the lid off of this salt shaker
like
here.
Sputnik there. Yeah.
There it is. It's shiny, it's metal, it's space worthy. And what we want to be able to do is, could you have a satellite hover over the top of the world, up over Alaska? You can't really do that. Geostationary satellites have to be over the equator.
Okay.
So how could we almost solve this? And this is the tricky part. Maybe should we tilt the Earth over?
Focus on the pole. That's what we're trying to accomplish here, right?
So here we have the northern side of the planet, and we're going to trace out the orbit of a satellite with this salt shaker lid here. Now imagine a highly elliptical orbit. So let's put the Earth in one of the foci of the ellipse, and we'll have an imaginary foci out here. So the satellite will not go in a circle around the Earth, but will be in this long strung out ellipse. So the satellite will go...
Kind of like a racetrack.
Yes, there you go, like a racetrack. So it's an oval elliptical shape like that. And notice now that when the satellite's over here, we've got a nice view of the northern hemisphere around. There's Alaska, Russia, Canada, Greenland, all there. So that's the ellipse aspect of an orbit, Kepler's first law. The second law saying that when you're further away as a satellite, you go slower. And this we can take real advantage of. Because the way this orbit works, when the satellite goes over Antarctica here, it's going to be close to the Earth. It's going to be moving, whoosh, goes on by. And then as it comes out here, it will slow down. This increases what is known as the dwell time. The satellite will just hang here looking for hours at Alaska and the high Arctic. And then eventually it will come around and it will accelerate and whiz around the South Pole and then come back and hang here for a while because it's further away from the planet. It goes slower. It has to. That's the laws of motion. And such like that, repeating.
Wow.
Now the real important way to make this work is you have to have two satellites. So that while one is whipping around the pole, you've got the other one out here, and they work as a team. You could then get a series of images of Alaska that can be almost from a quasi a constant frame of reference,
Right.
and you can loop them together to make movies. You can take a picture every 10 minutes, say, of Alaska, and then loop it, playing it at several frames a second. You could see the clouds whiz on by. You know, the Weather Channel, weather broadcasters in the lower 48 especially can show these movie loops from the geostationary satellites. In Alaska, we've never really been able to do that very well, especially in the higher, most northern parts of the state, because those geostationary satellites are over the equator. It's not a good view. And this highly elliptical orbit whipping around the South Pole and then dwelling up here would be a way for us to get that constant frame of reference and do really good weather surveillance over the Arctic, seeing where those storms are, where they're going. Nothing quite like a movie loop of the weather in time to really illustrate what's important, what's going on.
And compared to what we have right now, we just have small windows or snapshots of what's going on with the polar orbiters. We don't have that long range view that's looking top down to give us that complete motion picture that helps us understand so much of the atmosphere at this
There's
point.
so many different kinds of satellites. Each has their advantage. Each is important, and the highly elliptical orbit satellite will also fit into that scheme. It's a nifty idea to solve an Alaskan challenge.
That's fantastic. Well, that sounds really exciting. And again, kind of a satellite dream of the future to come. Okay, very good. Thanks for joining us today, Eric. We really appreciate the information. And if you'd like to learn more about what Eric does at GINA, at the University of Alaska Fairbanks, we invite you to visit the web address that you see on your screen there. For Alaska Weather Facts, I'm meteorologist Dave Snyder.
And now, marine weather around Alaska.
Welcome back. Looking at today's sea ice analysis, not a lot different from yesterday, just kind of some little bit of fluctuation in that thin ice, areas of thin ice there, central Arctic coast, and then the heavier area to the north there on the east side, just kind of drifting around with the heavier pack ice a little bit farther back to the north. And not a lot of change, no significant changes expected over the next 4 or 5 days. So moving on to the coastal water forecast. West winds 20 knots. Pretty uniform wind direction and sea heights. 20 knots all along the outer coastline there from the west. Seas running 8 to 9 feet in the north to as high as 10 feet in the south along the central and south coast. Clarence Strait, south winds 20 knots, seas 5 feet. About the same for Lynn Canal and Stevens Passage. South winds 15 knots, seas 3 feet. And for the day on Thursday, northwest winds down to 10 knots, pretty light there for Clarence Strait, with seas rather slight at 2 feet. Northwest 15 on the south coast, seas down to 7 feet. Light west winds on the north coast from at 10 knots, seas 6 to 7 feet. North 15 for Stevens Passage, and then south winds in the afternoon, or south winds for the day on Thursday, especially in the afternoon, 20 knots for Lynn Canal, 4-foot seas. Prince William Sound, variable to northwest breeze tomorrow at 10 knots with seas 2 feet. Cook Inlet, variable winds at 10 knots, seas slight, 1 to 2 feet or less. And west 15 for Kamishak Bay, Barren Islands, and the western North Gulf Coast, seas 3 feet in the case of Kamishak Bay, 6 feet for the Barrens western North Gulf Coast. Eastern North Gulf Coast, northwest at 15, seas 7 feet. And then for Thursday, pick the winds up. Cook Inlet, south to southwest, small craft advisories, all of Cook Inlet. 25 knot winds with 6-foot seas, southwest 25 for small craft advisories, Kamishak Bay. Southwest at 20 for the Barren Islands and western North Gulf Coast, seas 5 feet. Winds southeast at 10, staying light there for Prince William Sound, seas 2 feet or less, and south 15 for the area around Middleton Island. Kodiak Island, Shelikof Strait, variable winds 10 knots tomorrow, seas 3 to 7 feet. Alaska Peninsula, same forecast, light variable winds at 10 knots, seas 2 feet on the north side, Bering Sea side, bottom side there, south or Pacific side of the peninsula, 7-foot seas, west 15 for Bristol Bay. And moving on to Thursday, Alaska Peninsula, southwest 20 knots, seas 6 feet, Bristol Bay, southwest 20 knots, seas 6 feet. Castle Cape, all the way up to Sitkinak, up the east side Kodiak Island, west winds at 20, and small craft advisories for Shelikof Strait, southwest 25, seas 6 feet. On Alaska Island, southwest to northwest, 15 knots. Unmak Island, variable at 10 on the Pacific side. Bering Sea side, southwest 15. Adak and Atka, just call it west-southwest. 10 to 15 knots all the way back to Amchitka. Kiska to Shimia, west winds at 20. And Shimiadakiska, west winds 15 for Thursday. Amchitka Island and the Bering Sea side of Adak and Atka Islands, northwest at 20. Pacific side of Adak and Atka, small craft advisories. Also Woonmak Island, small craft advisories, east-southeast winds 25 knots. Unalaska Island, southwest at 20, seas 5 feet. And for the Kuskokwim Delta Coast, small craft advisories, southwest winds 25 knots. Same forecast for the Pribilof, southwest 25, 30-knot winds from the southwest St. Matthew Island, and 30-knot south winds for the Yukon Delta Coast, east at 30, St. Lawrence Island. And for Thursday, 25-knot northerly St. Lawrence Island, seas 8 feet, west winds 25 knots across the Bering Sea to the Yukon Delta Coast, south of Nunivak Island, west at 20, Pribilofs lighter yet, west at 15, seas at about 6 feet. And for the eastern Beaufort Sea coast there, demarcation to about Kaktovik, Barter Island or so, give or take, west winds 25 knots, small craft advisories, otherwise central and east side, west at 20, 15-knot winds, western Arctic coast to Cape Thompson, south 10 knots, down to Wales to Cape Thompson. And then for Thursday, Wales to Cape Thompson, northeast 15, southwest 15, western Arctic coast, central and eastern coastal areas, west at 15 knots, 3 to 4 foot seas. For tonight, still a little breezy, but diminishing winds up there along the Arctic coast. Still a chance of some light mixed precipitation. Showers and rain, Copper River Basin showers, eastern interior, slow to end. Front, moderate amounts of rain into the northern panhandle all the way down to Dixon Entrance. Continues tomorrow, slowly ending, clearing out from west to east over the interior. More rain approaches the Yukon Delta coast and pushes inland to the central interior on Thursday afternoon. Tries to. Some showers and partly and mostly cloudy skies elsewhere over the eastern interior and still unsettled for the panhandle.
These forecasts are for planning purposes only. Call 1-800-WX-BRIEF for a formal pre-flight briefing. Always file a flight plan before you go flying. The U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary urges you to leave a float plan with a friend or the harbor master before you go boating.